This is the biggest delta which we have on the face of Earth. 60% area is with Bangladesh and 40% with us. This is about 4,200 square kilometer area of forest area. And then the total Sundarban area is about 9,600 square kilometers. What is Sundarban? Explanation that the name came from the Samudraban because it is a sea forest. And then lastly, there were two surveyors who surveyed this area and they drew a line somewhere here and they said that anything below this line is not cultivable. And no agriculture should be taken in that area, and they said that is the Sundarban and the backwater is to go up to that area. But over the years, settlement started in this area, and now in this entire area of 9,600 square kilometer we have in this country, about 4,200 square kilometer is the forest area and rest is the where the people are there. Going to the statistics, it has got a very high population density. Last 2001 census says the people were about 4.2 million. Population density is about 846 square kilometer. It is 846 people per square kilometer. Forest, it has got a very old conservation history. The forests were declared as a protected forest in 1898. Then after the promulgation of Indian Forest Act in 1927, the forests were notified as a reserve forest. After the Indian Forest Act of 1927, we again had another act for wildlife protection, that is Wildlife Protection Act in 1972, and the area was declared as a, within the area there was a declared national park in 1330 square kilometer, incidentally which is also a World Heritage property. And then we have got the small 3 sanctuaries. So now, it's a little confusing I suppose. Entire area is 9,600 square kilometer area, which is also a biosphere reserve, out of which 4,200 square kilometer area is a forest area. In this forest area, we have got 1 national park and 3 wildlife sanctuaries. So ultimately it is very well protected, that is what I wanted to say. Going back to Bangladesh, Bangladesh also had an act like ours, Wildlife Protection Act in 1973, and they have also declared their part of the forest area, as a sanctuary. And they also have the designated area as UNESCO World Heritage property. Now coming to the governance, I'll go to the earliest slide. This entire area comes under a department in the government of West Bengal, which is said as the Sundarban Affairs Department. It is headed by a Minister of Cabinet rank. Again, there is the same confusion as the confusion was in their area. The entire area is also part of the district administration, that is 24 Parganas South District. And then it also has the 3-tier self-government, that is the Jila Panchayat. That means Gram Panchayat, block level government and all. So now there are all the 3 agencies, that means Sundarban Affairs Department, District Administration Department and this local self-government, they have their development programs in the areas. That is not enough. We also have some work here amongst the villages which are very close to our forest boundary, that is this forest boundary. We have a JFMC, that Joint Forest Management Committee. We take care of about 52 villages, about 51 to 64 villages, where we also take up the development work. So now there are 4 agencies in one area, and there's hardly any coordination amongst them. This is our administration. I told you in the this area it is all by the district administration, Sundarban Affairs Department, we doing something here, and then also the Jila Parishad. In the forest area, it is headed by an officer of the CCF rank. He is Director Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. Then he has got 2 conservators. One is the Joint Director who looks after this area, which is the buffer area of Tiger Reserve, and then there is a field director who looks after this area of Tiger Reserve. Now, what is the Tiger Reserve? It is the major conservation program of Government of India. It started in the year 1973. Sundarban is one of the first 9 Tiger Reserves which started in 1973, and it is a major conservation project of the government. do we do in forest department? I will not go into the detail about the civil area. What do we do in the forest area? Intensive protection of flora and fauna. That means you have to have your camps in different areas. You have to have your people, forest guard, beat officers. Many of the areas we do collaborative protection work. We do the BSF because it's a border area. We do the border security force. Bangladesh also does with their border force. Then we have some arrangement with the local police because the entire area comes under one police station, primarily one police station of Gosala, and then the part area is in the coastal police station. And protection also has that you have to see that all these acts are not violated. So many acts. I have already named Indian Forest Act, Wildlife Protection Act, Environment Protection Act, Marine Fisheries Act. All these acts, they are not violated. It is very well protected area, there is no doubt about it, both in our part as well as in the part of the Bangladesh. And it is a major hope for the tiger. There also, there is no to be. Then a mitigation of conflicts. This is a very big issue I will discuss in detail. And then the eco-development work. What is the eco-development work? It is the small development works which we take up in the neighboring villages, I said about 51 villages. And which are ecologically sustainable. I mean, you will not take up anything which goes against the ecological principle. And then the ecotourism, the tourist. I must tell you, I worked as a deputy field actor at Sundarban Tiger Reserve from 1998 to 2002. Those days we used to have 30,000 tourists per year, and there were hardly any hotels and all. Now there are 1,70,000 tourists. This is what the boom in economy, the number of tourists. We get the same number of tourists as they get in corporate. Very huge pressure of tourists. Second, we didn't have any hotels. Now there are hotels for every pocket, hotels for every budget class. So ecotourism is a very big problem. I think it's a very big enemy which has come in the carbon ecotourism. Then the research, monitoring and evaluation. Research we are taking so many types of research work. One is the research work which we do in the collaborative, we like with WWF, we are doing the play-based estimation. With Center of Cellular Molecular Biology, we are taking the DNA estimation. With the Indian Institute of ISI, we are taking some statistical, doing some socioeconomic studies. We also have our own research wing. Like we analyze the scat of tiger. Once you analyze the scat of tiger, you find the food preference. So we find that the understanding is probably the tiger eats only deer and big ungulates. But what we find the Sundarban tiger is very much like a Bengali tiger, and it eats fish. It swims very fast, 16 km/h, and it also has a Bengali character. It attacks from the behind. So with that, we come to this eco-development part of it. This was what our population was in 1991 census. Now the population is 4.2 census. And these are the people who come probably about 5% of the total population who are dependent on this natural resource. If you go by the same calculation, probably we'll have close to 5 million people in this census. What do you do with these people? The people are increasing and the natural resource remains the same. Then we have got a concept that probably there are some people who are honey collectors, they only do honey collection, agriculture, they do only agriculture, or the fishermen, they are only limited to fishermen. It's not the case. What Anjan Goa studied, and he found that in April to June, the major people are engaged in agriculture because it is a single rain-fed area. So 80% of people are doing agriculture, and there is a little bit of people who are doing fishing, and then the second thing is the honey collection, April to June, because this is the time when the people enter into the forest, they collect the honey, and the maximum number of people are killed during honey collection. What do they do? They enter the forest, they find out a comb, they have this smoke, drive away the honeybees, cut the comb, and comes back to the their boat with the honey. And as they don't have any protection except for this lathi, so every year you get about 7 to 10 people get killed by the honey collection. But see the socioeconomics, they don't have any other option also. I mean, honey gives us so much of good return in a small time that because of this greed, people tend to enter into forest area. Now you see from July to October, the fishing is the main thing, because you have already planted the paddy, so you have time, and then the fishing is the main thing. And once we come to this season in November to March, fishing remains the major thing, and with the agriculture, because if you have some irrigation facilities, you have a winter crop. Next, these were the work which were taken by us in last 10 years, which is say that eco-development. Actually, management of Sundarban is the management of the water. There is no sweet water. We have got a huge tourist lodge in Sanjakali, but it doesn't have a drinking water. Water are being carried. That is why in the old days in Sundarbans, we did not have any can inside Sundarbans, because we had a feeling that probably there is no water, because we didn't have water in Sanjakali, we didn't have water in Sonakali. Thanks to WWF, we got some money, and we could tried in the area like Dobaki, which has come up as a very big ecotourism center. Thanks to Colonel Banerjee, those days he was there. And then we had first surface camp in Dobaki, followed it by the Chanta, again with the help of WWF. Then we had our own in Patwardhani, and now we are having 3 more places. Before that, our people, forest people, they used to stay in the boat. They used to take the same water. So they used to get the gastroenteritis, all these gastric infections. So 10% of the people were always admitted into the Gosaba hospital. We had a big room in Gosaba where there were 6 beds. Always there are 6 people there lying sick. So these are the eco-development work which we took up in the 15 villages. Mainly related with the either pisciculture or the irrigation. Actually, during the British time, they had their network of irrigation channels. Over the period, these irrigation channels got silted. So what we do, we take out this silt, and once we take out this silt, rainwater is harvested into these irrigation channels, and then they can raise their winter crops in this season. We also have medical camps. There is only one hospital in the entire area. Awareness center, and it's very important, doesn't appear show, but it's very important. And that a deep well like this. Then we have the nursery, field plantation, food plantation, brick path. This is also very important. I don't have any photo. These roads, they get muddy, slushy during rainy season. And these are the only networks in the village. So we have some sort of network. This is what we did in the last 10 years, in this quantum. What actually we got, if we find that this is the input per individual, if we see, this is the amount we spent in all these years. And this is the only money which is going to the per individual over the years. So we think that we are doing too much, but actually what actually goes to the people is hardly anything. So this was all about eco-development.